Hello, I'm Rex Butterfield, and I'd like to welcome you to a video about my Quilcom SIM-AUTOHARP. If you don't know what an auto-harp is, it's not actually a harp, it's a type of zither. The big difference between a conventional zither and an auto-harp is these buttons, and they press down on rods or strips below, and they have an arrangement of felt pads that damp the strings that you don't want to hear for the particular chord and key that you select with these buttons. They've been around for well over 100 years, and the original idea was that anybody could pick one up and strum it and just press the button they want for the key and chord type, so it would be easy to play as an accompaniment like you might get from a rhythm guitarist in a modern pop band. Somebody pointed out that it's the only type of subtractive acoustic instrument, because when you press a button you don't hear the strings that you don't want to hear, only the ones that you do, so you press down to subtract all the ones that you don't want to hear. Now, as I'm sure you've come to expect of me, there's lots of information in the background info folder, so if you want to find out more about the instrument, have a look in there. So now we'll have a look into the operation of this rather strange plugin. So on the Synthesizer panel we have this selector where we can choose the method by which we play the plugin. So when we have mouse selected, we drag with the mouse. And as you could see there, the horizontal movement plucks the strings and the vertical position sets the volume. If we choose mod wheel, then we can use the mod wheel for strumming, which means we can be faster, should we want to be, than using your wrist with the mouse. And there, the vertical position of the mouse only controls the volume. There's the possibility to use both of them together, so you could go slowly with the mouse, for instance, and put the occasional fast strum in with the mod wheel, for example. And do all sorts of craziness. Now, before I talk about the LFO, I'll tell you how to change the root note and the chords. So, the MIDI keys from C2 to C4, middle C being C4, change the root note, and C5, D5 and E5 set the scale. So that's C5, D5, E5, back to C5. So I'll just demo that now with some root note changes and some chord changes. Now I've provided some pre-made default scales that you can select from here, but you can also set whatever values, whatever notes you want to be in that scale. For instance, we have a blues scale. and whatever scale you set on these little keyboard thingies will get saved with a song and in a preset if you save a preset. So now we'll come on to what I think is the most fun method of control, which is to use LFOs. We have an LFO for the up-down strumming, an optional LFO to gate that strumming. So for strumming, we can use the press on button, which is momentary. We can latch it on. And we can re-trigger when we press the button. But probably the best way to control the LFOs is to use the root keynotes on the MIDI keyboard. The AUTOHARP 2 preset demonstrates the use of the gate LFO to turn the strum signal on and off, and we can synchronize the strum LFO and the gate LFO to the door tempo. So that's a quick demonstration of that. There are a range of waveforms available, including some nice random functions. But one I particularly like is where you draw your own strum pattern. And that's with cyclic set. And on the draw LFO, you can set a single shot. Turn up the strum rate. Now the offset auto preset demonstrates the fact that you can set a reduced depth of strum and offset it, which you can manually adjust with the knob or automate it. If the UD strum, which is up-down strum button, is selected, the system will add a rapid strum when you press a key down and when you release it. The edge knob controls what happens when there's a rapid transition, and it sets a minimum time for that transition to occur, which is effectively the strum rate. So I'll demonstrate that. So now I'll talk about the synthesizer controls. I'll be using the module to demonstrate these controls. The semitone gives you a range of tuning, and we have of course fine tune. And although of course you can't bend the strings on the real auto harp, you can on this one. The timbre knob is a macro that controls various parameters of the 40 free running string generators. And because they can, I've provided an alternative harmonic system for those, which sounds much more synthetic. We can also simulate the hardness of the plectrum going from a soft finger strum to a hard plectrum strum. We can set the decay of the strings, which is key tracked using the decay knob, and this can go up to an almost infinite sustain. And use the damp button to damp all the strings. The KCD is for key change damping, and the idea is that when you change key, all the strings will be damped very briefly, which may well happen on a real auto harp, but I wasn't sure whether I liked this, so I've given you the option to have it on or off, and this is the effect. So you can make your mind up whether you like that or not. Now, because all the strings are available at all times on a real auto harp, the ones that are so-called dead, which means damped by the felt blocks on the key strips, you will hear a small tick as the plectrum passes over it. So I'll move the mod wheel very slowly and you can hear that. And that sort of zippy sound is a characteristic of a real auto harp, but we have control over it. So we can set the damping time. If I turn all these off, then you will only hear that sound, because all the keys are damped, all the strings are damped. And we can set the volume of that. And when a felt comes into contact with a string, it reduces the effective length of that string, so the pitch will increase. So I'll just turn this up so you can hear that. At 0, it's the same pitch as the string would be at if it was not damped. So that's what these three knobs are all about. Now the audio engine produces a stereo signal with the lower notes pan left and the higher notes pan right, and all stages in between. And we can adjust that stereo signal from mono through stereo to extra wide. So this is the part where I try to convince you to read the user guide, because there's a lot of information I haven't told you. Stuff like how to record the mouse position as automation, and more stuff about the LFOs. Some details I've missed out there. And so I hope you have a little bit of fun with this, and I shall say until the next time, bye.